Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is HD Starcraft, and I'm here to bring you guys another Heart of the Swarm broadcast. This is going to be from the DreamHack tournament, once again from the group stage, and this is actually going to be featuring one of my favorite players. Of course, EG.Jaedong is going to be here as the Blue Zerg player in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, and his opponent on Belshir Vestige is going to be in the top right-hand corner. His name is Xlord, and he is a German Zerg player. Interestingly enough, in an interview, he actually said that his name was pronounced Xlord. But I think I'm just gonna stick with Xlord. Maybe I'll sprinkle in the occasional Sexlord here or there. But anyways, whatever he may be, he is a German Zerg player and a former Warcraft 3 pro, moving on into Starcraft 2. Actually, a really talented Zerg. Now playing full-time professional Starcraft 2 for Team XMG. And this should be a good Zerg versus Zerg. Not too sure why the music isn't working. I'll go ahead and just check the sound. Once again, it is on, but it's not on. So a little confusing for me. But very interesting because this is going to be one of my first opportunities, I think, to cast a Zerg versus Zerg. Since Heart of the Storm has been released, usually I don't do too many mirror matchups, but I can't just avoid them entirely. And when I saw the name Jaedong, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to cast a ZvZ. And on top of that, you know, it's interesting because all the matchups have evolved since you know, Heart of the Swarm. So it'll be fun to see how this one has kind of taken its hold. And I know that in the beta, Swarm hosts were really popular, but then they kind of phased out a little bit once Mutalisks got their buff. And then it kind of became, it kind of went back into like a Muta war in ZvZ. But nowadays in Heart of the Swarm, I think a lot of things have changed. Hydras are obviously very good. Roach Hydra is probably the predominant composition from the matchups that I've seen. But we'll see what happens here, as Jaedong is going to be opening up with a pretty aggressive spawning pool, bringing out some Zerglings here. Now, this is a 4-player map, so usually going with these earlier pool builds don't, you know, they don't work out too well on 4-player maps. But I think what he did here was a variant of the 10 or 11 pool. Could be a little bit later, could be a 14 gas, 14 pool. Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention, but we do have some Zerglings now making their way over to the top right-hand side, and, you know, Jaedong has guessed correctly. He brought his Overlord down to the bottom right-hand first to check for a hatchery, didn't see it there, so he's just going to go for the long-distance check, and he is going to see that, in fact, Xlord has spawned at this location. The only thing is, because of the travel time, Xlord has been able to get a couple more Zerglings out, even though he went for a more economic base build. And I think Xlord will be okay here. He has lost one drone, but he's got a Spine Crawler coming up inside the mineral line, and he's brought his Zerglings back home as well, as his Queen has come out. And I think this will be enough to hold off Jaedong's attack. So, you know, Jaedong trying to go with a very aggressive opening here. I don't think it's going to work out, although he's killed off another drone here. 3 drones have actually gone down already, and it's actually forced the Spine Crawler, you know, that was not mining, as it could have been a drone mining that entire time, and Xlord has decided to cancel it in favor of getting his minerals back and his drone back. So, maybe Jaedong's opening has been successful. As you guys can see, he's got more drones than his opponent, and you know, he's put his opponent on the back foot here. Very nicely done, and now he's just finished Zergling speed as well, although the problem now he's going to be facing up against is Banelings. We do have Banelings from Xlord on the ramp here, and finish up the Baneling nest inside the mineral line. And Jaedong does not have a Baneling nest of his own, so if he's going to be trying to go up in here, he's going to be dealing with these Banelings. And the problem with these units, when you've got just purely Zerglings, is if you don't micro absolutely perfectly, you can be in a lot of trouble. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be in for a real treat today, because the Master, the Maestro, maybe not the Maestro because that's Savior, but the Tyrant Jaedong is here, and his Zerg micro and macro were so sick in Brood War. If there's anyone that can Baneling, that can micro away from Banelings, I think it's going to be Jaedong. So this is going to be a real treat to watch him maneuvering in StarCraft 2, and we'll see what he does here. Oh god, he's going to try to get a couple of shots off on the Baneling. Now, if you do it correctly, you can actually get a couple of attacks off in melee range with the Zergling and then pull away, but it's very hard to do against a Baneling. As if Xlord is paying attention, he can manually detonate his Banelings instead of letting them automatically detonate, and then he can pick up the Zerglings in that fashion. And usually manually detonating is superior to normal detonation, because with normal detonation there is a little bit of a delay time And that can end up costing you as a Zerg player. So typically Zerg players nowadays, they do manually detonate, and oh, well, it looks like Xlord here is just going to pull back. I thought for a second there we might have seen some fireworks. But Jaedong is going to get a hatchery down now, so very nicely done. You know, just buying time by maneuvering back, getting his hatchery down. We can see that Xlord is also getting a hatchery of his own. One Baneling killed off by a couple of Zerglings training on that position, but 3 Zerglings were killed as a result, so that was a pretty good trade for Xlord. The last Baneling going down there was not so great. We can see here Jaedong trying to bait these Zerglings back into the Banelings. Both players Zerg microing so beautifully here, and I'm just going to show you guys the APM, both of them at a very high 200 plus EPM, and in terms of just normal APM, we can take a look at that as well. 319 for Jaedong. That is a pretty sickeningly high amount in Brood War, in StarCraft 2, excuse me. In Brood War, his APM sometimes went up to like 400 or 500, if I'm not mistaken. So very good play from both of these Zerg players so far. We can see that the Zerg Baneling micro wars are still on full effect right now, as both players try to get that eke of that edge in order to get the map control needed in the middle of the map. We can see one Baneling running up here. The Zerglings pushing back Xlord's forces, and we can see that I think these Banelings have been left by themselves, and Jaedong can pick them off here if he micros perfectly. He's gonna try to send it. Oh, that was not good from Jaedong, trying to take out those Banelings right there, but Xlord got the better of that engagement. And I thought for a second there Xlord might have left his Banelings behind, sadly, and wasn't protecting them, and that could have been a huge mistake had his Banelings gone down. But now I think he's got map control once again on his side. He's got a spine crawler at the front door of his natural, so he's quite safe. And now he's going to be the one launching an engagement against Jaedong, who has you know, losing his Zerglings earlier to that Baneling detonation is going to be quite costly, and this is a lot of forces coming to Jaedong's front door. I'm not sure if he's going to have enough to hold this off. He's got a couple of Banelings and Spine Crawlers coming right now, but his ramp is under attack by an invading horde of Banelings and Zerglings. And the Banelings, I think, oh my god, they're just getting taken out one by one as they go up the ramp, and somehow Jaedong kills off almost all the Banelings without suffering major casualties, but now he's got to deal with the Zerglings that were able to survive past the ramp gauntlet. And I think Jaedong will be able to hold this off pretty easily. I mean, this game has been pretty damn close so far. You can see 37 to 30 to 36 to 40 supply. Workers killed. There's only been 4 drones that have gone down total this entire game. Just goes to show how high Zerg versus Zerg has evolved. But one thing that Jaedong is leading in significantly is the drone department. Oh, losing quite a few Zerglings right there. He is up by about 10 or so harvesters, now up by only 8, but he does have that worker advantage, which is pretty good for, you know, for Zerg versus Zerg if you can hold that worker advantage. But the problem is Xlord has more forces, and he's continuing to try to stream on by and punish Jaedong for being greedy with the drones, and he's gonna get into the natural once again, but Jaedong escapes with his drones, only losing a few right there. Very nice micro, and now he's got Banelings at the natural as well to help defend. So far, the crazy dynamic of ZvZ hasn't broken the back of either one of these players yet. They've been able to stand toe-to-toe with each other, just showing how highly skilled both of these guys truly are. But Xlord hasn't given up yet. He's continuing to stream in more forces, and this time drones are going to go down. Couple of drones taking casualties right there at the natural expansion. More Banelings coming in as well. Jaedong needs to protect his drones, and it looks like he's going to lose maybe 1 or 2 more. But in the effort, I think he keeps most of his drones alive, which is, of course, always the result you want in Zerg versus Zerg. But Jaedong has, through the constant attacks, has now dropped in supply, only 45 to 53, but he's been able to tech up to layer, and he's got a Spire coming out. And for those of you guys who have never seen Jaedong Mutamicro before, you guys are going to be in for a sick game here. If Jaedong can get his Mutalist on the field, that completely changes Zerg versus Zerg. Once Mutas hit the field, you know, the other Zerg player can no longer go for Zerglings and Banelings. He's forced to either go into Hydras or Mutas himself. And unfortunately for Xlord, he doesn't even have a lair up yet. He's been so aggressive with his Zerglings and Banelings, but he hasn't been able to break it through into Jaedong and beat him yet. So now he's fallen behind in technology, and he's just now trying to get the lair up. It's halfway done about, but his Spire is going to be woeful woefully late as Jaedong is about to finish his up, and we can see that in the terms of gas saved up, Jaedong's got about 500. He'll probably have about 7 or 8 Mutilisks coming out once his Spire completes. But then again, Xlord hasn't given up the assault on the ground. He really wants to try to end this game before Mutilisks hit the field. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't even have any clue as to where the tech is for Jaedong. He hasn't been able to get a scout off into the main base for some time now. And it looks like this third hatchery is going to take some damage here, but Xlord should be able to keep it alive by bringing his Zerg forces back. So this hatchery is going to stay alive, but what about those Mutilisks? Jaedong is making 7 Mutilisks right now, and he's researching Flyer Carapace as well, because in Zerg versus Zerg, Carapace is so superior to flyer attacks, because you know, in the muta battles, the glaive worm bouncing, the more armor you have, the more resistant to its damage effects you are. And Xlord here is going for a Spire as well. But the problem is, you know, his upgrade is going to be later, his Mutilisks are going to be later, so I think Xlord right now, with the huge Zergling advantage he's got, has got to try to keep Jaedong, you know, on the back foot, defensive, with these Zerglings. If he pulls back here, he could be in a lot of trouble, as Jaedong will just fly in with his Mutalisk and start to inflict heavy damage before Xlord can get his Mutalisks out on the map. And Jaedong, you know, I don't think he's going to waste too much time here. He's going to pick off a couple of Overlords, it looks like. And in the meantime, we do have some Zerglings that have tried to go for a run-by into the Zerg main base. But Xlord has so many Zerglings here, he will be able to defend it. Interestingly enough, neither player really making too many creep tumors on this map or in this matchup. Which, you know, I think if there's a matchup where spreading creep has a bit of a bad side effect, I guess Zerg versus Zerg would be it. So I think if there's a matchup where you don't have to focus on spreading creep too much, I guess ZvZ is the one, because it does help your opponent's Zerg forces move a little bit faster as well. But still, it's nice to spread creep in order to give yourself some vision. But with the micro that these two players have been going through so far, and the, you know, the heavy APM they've got going on, just constantly harassing each other's forces, it's going to be very hard for them to be focusing on macroing their creep spread. Meanwhile, we do have a potential huge engagement that could go down momentarily here, as Xlord has been able to get his Mutalisks on the field. You know, Jaedong, I think, hesitating for a long time to attack with his Mutas, allowing Xlord to get Mutas of his own on the map. But the thing is, Jaedong does have an upgrade advantage with +1 armor, so he should theoretically be able to win the Muta on Muta War. Will he be able to save this hatchery? It looks like he will just barely be able to keep it alive, which is absolutely huge. Meanwhile, Zergling on Zergling engagement in the middle of the map, and it looks like Jaedong's Zerglings are overwhelmed at the Xel'Naga Tower, forcing him to once again retreat. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Muta count. 19 Mutas for Jaedong and only 17 for Xlord. So once again, Jaedong's got that air superiority, but it all comes down to the engagement. You've got to be able to spread your Mutas out really well during the fight as well. If you can spread them out into a large surface area in the sky, they take less damage from the glaive worms. If they stay clumped up, that's one of the, you know, one of the worst things you can do in a Muta on Muta War. Meanwhile, Xlord's +1 Flyer Carapace about to finish up as well, so he will be able to tie up Jaedong in terms of upgrades. Jaedong now flying up to the top left-hand corner, trying to clear out some Zerglings, and it looks like Xlord might be thinking about going in. The Baneling was sniped off here, so Jaedong will not have a Baneling defense. He does have another Baneling, but once again, it's sniped off. And it looks like Xlord really wants to commit into this hatchery. Meanwhile, on the ground, also sending in some Zerglings over to the natural expansion. The franticness, the hecticness of Zerg versus Zerg. A couple of Zerglings now streaming into the main base, and Xlord just using this as a diversion in order to get his Zerglings into Jaedong's main. And now he gets a full scout, and he's going to be able to kill off a couple of drones as well. So a very nice job right there by Xlord, sending more Zerglings over into the third as Mutas go over to the natural expansion to pick off key structures, units, and buildings. And Jaedong's got to bring his Muta flock back over here and interception has occurred, and Jaedong now gonna fly in and try to pick off all these Mutas. Oh, it's a great engagement from Jaedong. And in the meantime, has he been able to get rid of all these Zerglings? It looks like through the Zergling counterattacks on the ground, he's lost about 16 drones, so he has taken heavy casualties, but in effect, it really only evens up the game because Jaedong had so many more drones to begin with. So now this game is pretty much, you know, it's quite even now, I'd have to say. Xlord getting the better of that fight, and being able to kill off several drones, but I think at this point, you know, both players are on 3 bases. They have similar numbers of Mutalisks, maybe Jaedong having just a slight lead right there, but this is a very close game of Zerg versus Zerg, and oh, it looks like Xlord thinking about moving in here. He has to be careful. The enemy Zerg does have vision with that Xelnaga tower. Meanwhile, more Zerglings trying to flood in here from Xlord. This is just the craziest Zerg versus Zerg you've ever seen. So much action when you've got these two high-level Zerg players going at each other, going for the throat. And once again, we have Xlord coming into this hatchery. He's going to be able to take it out, and he focuses it down. And mission accomplished while Jaedong tries to go for the intercept once again. Meanwhile, a hatchery at the top side at the 12 o'clock is going to be picked off by Jaedong's Zerglings. Very nice job right there. So at least he's going to get a hatchery for a hatchery. But at the same token, he lost his third while he really only delayed Xlord's fourth. So I think Xlord got the better of that once again. And slowly but surely, the German Zerg player from Team XMG is, I think, getting momentum under his wings. And, you know, literally under his wings. Look at him, he's got flying around right now. 31 to tie up Jaedong. And so I think that Jaedong right now might be feeling a little bit of pressure, but he just now is going to finish Flyer Carapace level 2, while Xlord is still just starting it up. So Mr. Sexlord is going to be once again at an upgrade disadvantage. We have great micro coming out of that drone to keep it alive as well. And going back to what I was saying before with the upgrades, if Jaedong wants to go for an engagement now, since he's got the extra upgrade, it would certainly be a good idea. Although we can see that Xlord actually has fire attacks, so never mind. Looks like Xlord was able to squeak out a weapons upgrade, so the upgrades are pretty close right now for both players. And we'll see what happens here, but it is looking very similar to old school Brood War ZvZ. You know, back in the days, it was all about Muta Zergling versus Muta Zergling, and adding in some Scourge as well, just for added damage against the Mutalisk. Unfortunately, in Heart of the Swarm, we don't have Scourge. But we do have a lot of Mutalisks coming in here, and this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever has the more Mutas remaining at the end of this battle typically wins the game. And does Jaedong actually have enough here? It looks like he's got enough to push Xlord's forces back home. And meanwhile, Jaedong going on over to the right-hand side and is going to be able to take out yet another hatchery. Beautiful job right here from Jaedong. Now, the reason why I said the armor upgrade for Mutalisks, I think, is a little bit more superior to the flyer attacks is because in Muta-on-Muta wars, the flyer attack is really beneficial if the Glaive Worm always bounces 3 times, but a lot of times they don't bounce 3 times in Muta-on-Muta battles if the Mutas are spread out. But the armor is always effective no matter what. If you get hit, it always reduces that 1 damage. So that's why I do feel like the armor is a little bit better than the Glaive Worm plus attack. Because the armor never misses, essentially. It always protects you. The Glaive Worm can sometimes miss. But anyways, just kind of putting that theory aside here, we can see that Jaedong goes over to the right-hand side and he picks off a hatchery once again. Jaedong starting to get some of that momentum back. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of these tabs here. Spending pretty close across the board for both of these players. Production, Xlord now finishing up his flyer carapace as well. And in terms of units, 43 mutas for Jaedong and only 39 for Xlord. So it is actually quite close still, as both players are going for their 4th hatchery right now. But oh man, Zerglings just trying to fly in over to this 4th expansion, get immediately snapped off by a Baneling. But Jaedong isn't going to have any of that. He's going to fly in with his mutas here, but his mutas are dangerously clumped up. That is not how you want to engage. And Jaedong realizes that, of course, with the Zerglings on the ground as well, that distracts, that basically tanks damage from the Muta's Glaive Worms. And so in a Muta versus Muta battle, if you've got Zerglings underneath, it helps out your Mutas so much. Now Jaedong has to bring in his Mutalisks as well, but that engagement did not go well for Jaedong. As you can see, he lost all of his Zerglings and a healthy clump of Mutalisks as well. And it's lost right now, not looking good, actually, for Xlord, who's lost a little bit more, 15k to 12k. And Jaedong once again trying to go over to this hatchery to pick it off, but Xlord is already in that position, able-bodied and willing to defend. So very nice job right there, and he keeps his 4th hatchery alive. Both players have just been doing an incredible job in this Zerg versus Zerg, despite the non-stop action and the high-octane pace. Both players have been able to macro up into a 25-minute plus ZvZ. 4th hatchery have gone down for both players now, and the Muta flock just continues to grow in size and number. 47 mutas for Jaedong, 37 for Xlord. This is just an astronomical amount of mutas, and here comes Xlord with his muta flock, gonna try to go for an attack, and in the meantime distracting Jaedong in order to get all these Zerglings over to this hatchery, and he's gonna be able to take off this hatchery. Very nice job right here from Xlord, but his mutas, they're in a lot of trouble. Oh, they've been caught by Jaedong's Mutalisk, and he cannot run away. He's been forced to engage, and watch his meter numbers just plummet downwards. 17 meters now, and that was a bad engagement from Xlord. That's a problem, I guess, when you go with so many multiple engagements. Sometimes you forget about your Mutalisks, and that was terrible for Xlord. He basically dropped in about 50 supply to Jaedong in that engagement, and now Jaedong has control over this game. That was the one mistake he was looking for his player to make. The top level players, they don't make mistakes, and they exploit opponents' mistakes. And right there, Jaedong just exploited Xlord, and now Xlord is going to be in a lot of trouble with basically double the number of mutas in the sky that he's got to fight up against. I don't see how in the world he's going to be able to hold off this type of army. And we actually have some Zerglings somehow that we're able to sneak on by into the main base as well. They're going to go straight for the Spire. Very wise decision here from Jaedong, and that Spire looks like it is going to get taken down. And meanwhile, Jaedong just waiting for the right opportunity to finish off Xlord. There are some Zerglings that are flooding in once again to Jaedong's third expansion, but I think these are just nothing more than really an annoying thorn in Jaedong's side that he'll just brush off very easily. Although Xlord here is bringing his entire Mutalisk army, and it looks like he wants to try to go for a base trade, and Jaedong isn't having any of that. He's pulling all of his mutas back home in order to intercept these Mutalisks. But Xlord, if he can keep one step ahead of Jaedong's forces, he can actually pick off a couple of key buildings here and then get the hell out of there. He's actually going to try to stay around and kill the hatchery, but it's infused, it's transfused by the queen. And these mutas have got to get the hell out of there. GG, well played, calls Xlord, as you realize this game is pretty much over. Jaedong's Zerglings were able to kill off the Spire as well, which was kind of the nail in the coffin. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you play ZvZ, as they used to call it in Brood War. Jaedong versus Zerg. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is actually Jaedong's best matchup in Brood War, Zerg versus Zerg. He had an astounding 80% win rate. It was just so sick. So I'm glad he's brought it over here into StarCraft 2, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll have more replays coming out for you guys once again, and this is HD StarCraft. I am signing out.